to Nancy Mace. Who else? Who did we hear this from the other day about the same plan? This is the way.
Nikki Haley?
Was it Nikki Haley? Yeah. This is like
South Carolinians. Yeah.
There is an attempt here to hold the middle, and the middle. Let's be clear when we talk about this. Wants to cut your Social Security, and why do they want that? Because they want. Well, there's two things they want. They want to cut your Social Security because they want a lot of this money to slide into the stock market, because the stock market, we know, is owned by something like 20% of the country, broadly speaking. There may be some, but 80% of the stocks are owned by 20% of the people in this country. So for lack of, a better term, it's like, the top 10%. And, or I guess the top 20%. I mean, that's definitionally. And the way that you keep the market afloat is by having a bunch of money in there. I mean, people sell and get out of the market. Prices go down. They want this money in there. And of course, all the stockbrokers want it too, because it's dumb money. And if you cut Social Security, there'll be movements maybe to privatize parts of the remaining parts of Social Security, or more money will go into like the failed experiment of 401ks. And the way that they want to cut, and the way that they try and deal with cuts to Social Security being so toxic electorally, is they say, well, no one over the age of 50, let's say, will get cuts to Social Security. But young people who are not paying attention to it, they'll have no Social Security. And I just want to make one thing clear. The reason why people who are retiring today have Social Security is because the program started years ago. In other words, like, if you're young, you should understand that someday you're going to be old, and that's when Social Security will be important to you. Do not let them cut it. Here is Nancy Mace trying to make this argument.
I want to ask you about something your fellow South Carolinian, Nikki Haley, said. Obviously, she is running for president in 2024. She said this week that she supports raising the retirement age for people who are in their 20s when it comes to receiving Social Security benefits. Do you agree with her on that?
I think that's something that has to be on the table. We have to look at. I'm 45 years old. I'm assuming that Social Security will be insolvent, that I won't have retirement funds from what I put into.
Pause it. Well, what she should do is ask one of her staffers to look into this. Because at age 45, if nothing is done, she will still receive 75% of her benefits. Social Security is not going to be insolvent. The trust fund, if nothing is done, will be insolvent. She will still get 75%. Could be a little bit more. That's a conservative estimate. 75% of her benefits. So her plan is, let's cut it for some people so that I don't get cuts to mine.
Everyone's got to take a haircut.
Has to be on the table. We have to look at. I'm 45 years old. I'm assuming that Social Security will be insolvent, that I won't have retirement funds from what I put into in my adult life, my working life. We do have to look at Social Security. We've got to look at our spending in this country, mandatory and discretionary. If we're going to take on fixing the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, you name it, we've got to get serious about it.
We got to cut it.
So you do support potentially raising the age to maybe extend the
as long as it's not anybody that's heading into retirement right now. We do not want to take away those that are in retirement or those that are heading into retirement. But if we're talking about younger generations, my kids, for example, if they know what the retirement will look like 40 years from now, 50 years from now, then that should be on the table, and can be. We have to. Both Republicans and Democrats have screwed this thing up, and they've got to fix it.
Yeah, we want to cut it. We want to cut it, but we just don't want the political blowback from it. So everybody else is going to bear the brunt of it. And we have to get really serious, which is why I will refuse to consider the only solution in this way, which is like raising taxes in order to ensure that this would never happen. When they say get serious, they mean they want austerity. That's what that means.
Glizzy McGuire says, Sam, you say the failed experiment of 401k. What do you mean? Should I not contribute to my 401k? No. I'm saying that it was an experiment. Can we support the retirement of millions and millions and millions of people by shifting away from the defined benefit model of pensions into the defined contribution model? Defined benefit means I'm definitely getting this much when I am older. Mm-hmm. Defined contribution means I've got to pay in this much. We know if you look at the statistics, all you got to do is Google like the success of 401ks. Don't look at the individual. I'm talking about in terms of like generations and groups of people. People take money out of their 401ks when they're in a financial crisis. They put less money in than they should put it in. They mismanage it. All of these things. It is a failed experiment to essentially privatize parts of social insurance. And regardless of what Nancy Mace's 20-year-old kids think, or 15-year-old kids, they're not planning for a retirement. People don't plan for retirement until they get just old enough where they can barely do it if they're making enough money. That's why Social Security keeps about 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. And it not only keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty, it also reduces the burden on their kids. Because it's done automatically. And it's a defined benefit program.
401ks and our IRAs lost $2.4 trillion during the first or final 2 quarters of 2008 too. I mean, my
parents worked longer because of that.
It's subject.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, there's two sets of problems, right? I mean, if you have the money in the stock market, your retirement is going to be a function of where's the stock market at that point. I mean, you could say like it's going to grow 10% a year, over the course of 30 years. Well, that's great unless you're in your early 60s in 2005. And then you're screwed and you're going to be working for another 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
But that's just one set of problems. The other set, even the bigger one, is that people don't fund them properly. They're losing money on fees. They take money out and borrow against it and can't repay it because somebody got sick.
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, half the country is a paycheck away from basically, increased incredible financial precarity. Of course, those things are not going to be, or 401ks are not going to be completely stable. People are going to need to draw from them at some point. That's why the universality of public programs are so important.
Social insurance, folks. Don't let them cut your Social Security. In fact, expand it. Raise the cap and expand the benefits. 646-257-3920 is the number. 646-257-3920 is the number. We will take your phone calls.